Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Jessica Clemons, and this video is a culmination of both parts 1 and 2 of Wednesday season 2. So if you forgot what happened in season 2 part 1 or just wanted to see those sneaky little Easter eggs again, you can. As always, you can refer down below for the chapters to skip to part 2 if you're ready and willing. Happy watching and happy Wednesday. But first, before we get into it, check out nerdride.shop where you can find the latest and greatest in New Rockstars merch. We do have Wednesday merch. I bet y'all didn't know. We also have some God You merch because we know that Gen V is happening right now, and these are 2 shows about 2 schools. One school's horrible and the other school's dreadful, but you get the point. Go get some merch at nerdride.shop. And Wednesday season 2 dropped last week, and boy, is there a lot of stuff going on. We've got Tyler back, we're meeting Grandma, and someone keeps using a murder of crows to literally do some murder. Downright, honestly, poetic. I kind of really like it. There's so many little details the writers, the production team, and designers put into the show because you know they can hide a lot in this show. So let's get into it all. We'll go over the ending, what it all means, and point out all those little details you might have missed. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes launching your own website a breeze. Episode 1 of season 2 is titled Here We Woe Again, written by Al Goff and Miles Miller, yet directed again by Tim Burton. If you hadn't noticed, every episode of Wednesday, even the ones from the first season, always has woe in the title. As Wednesday says, it was an eventful summer, and we left last season with the school being canceled for the rest of the semester and everyone going back home for the summer. However, the stalker we're dealing with this season had begun reaching out at the end of last season's finale. As the camera pulls out, My Favorite Things begins playing by the Lennon Sisters, which according to the music supervisor, Nicole Weisberg, was a collaborative pick with the producers for its more unique spin than the original. We jumped 6 weeks earlier, and originally, according to the writers of this episode, there was a bigger scene here where there was a dog napper and Wednesday was at Starbucks and there was a barista that just couldn't get her name right, and they kept referring to her as Wendy with an I, and then she left with Lurch and he woke up in a dumpster with her name tattooed on his forehead, and it was a lot of stuff, but they removed all those bits. We see that Wednesday is using the talisman that we saw from last season. It was given to her by Morticia, her mother, and Wednesday used it as a necklace to contact Goody. Later, Goody used that necklace to pass through her and heal her as well. We then get a glimpse inside Goody's book. Although our translation of Latin was very, very rough, we could translate a little bit, and it gave us a sense of how season 2 will unfold, rather than it being just a collection of random spells. It says, look at the eyes of the raven, the innate charmer and the events and the future events and the fates of the touched, which could be emphasizing the dangers around Wednesday's powers. How Ophelia was seen as a crow, the same powers that they share could be driving them both to madness, with sinister intentions with the avian killer and nevermore. Wealth is sought, doves are willingly handed over to the raven, the world is purified, fire is the lamp of the enchanter is quiet within the purified world, fire is kindled in the middle, wealth is enchanted and bright and light and hidden under shadows. The eyes scan everything with a strong mind and a beautiful soul. This could be setting the stage for like deception, especially of those close, which we'll be seeing hopefully unravel between Morticia, her mother, and Wednesday. But the power to see the face of the world and to know its fate, its true herald, and he knows that some fate must not be destroyed, which I believe highlights Wednesday's devotion to save others, how much she does actually care for her mother, and it is especially, even if it's altering their natural course. It goes on to say, act as an enchanter, look at yourself with understanding, admire your image like a hammer, and still a broken appearance, know it well. Beware of the other child and the false ways of life, which will soon lead you to another path no matter how you choose. Therefore, 2 is not always worth 1. This other child and false way of life could be a reference to Pugsley and the zombie, but also could be about Stonehurst and his daughter both playing with life and death. All fixations, whoever casts them, always rebound on the enchanter and often bring pain and hidden harm to their well-being, which could apply to the inevitable downfall and sufferings for those who try to manipulate or control others, which I think speaks to Stonehurst the most and how much he's affected the lives of the outcasts and now suffers from the very thing he tried to control. Seeing as it talks about the power of fixations, which can see the truth or make something real, it's hard to really tell, but demand a higher price, this could definitely be talking about Wednesday's power. It seems like the psychic visions are actually taking a toll on her and maybe the world as well, and that she'll have to pay back in some way. A sorceress may freely cast fixations against any person or thing, yet they cannot control how the debt is repaid to the world, nor can even the most dangerous sorceresses bend the returning force, nor can they catch it unless they lessen their own harm. No sorceress entirely escapes the consequences, and even the most learned cast fixations only rarely. A victim must be chosen, the outcome prescribed, and the blood of an exile who honors the seer must be offered to cast the fixation. Although I attributed a lot of this text to season 2 overall, the text in part details the creation of the Nightshades, or the Shadow Society that we know Goody created to help the outcast. But it also talks about the eyes of the raven, having the ability to see the future, how fire is a tool for the raven, and sacrifice sacrifices of the dove must be made to the raven to help purify the world. From this, and from everything else in these 4 episodes, it also could point at Barry Dort being involved with the murders. Barry has fire powers, but based on how obsessed he is with outcast pride, I think he was born a normie and probably got his powers from Lois. The 2 Crow murders we get this season were both on normies who were investigating Lois, which Barry would want to cover up if that's how he got his fire powers. Which also brings me back to the fact that the Crows could be ravens, as this ties into Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. This is the same poem that Nevermore comes from, but they do refer to them as crows throughout the show. I do think the book is a clue though, because Wednesday says the book had all the answers or something similar to like that, and then showing this scene, and I think the filmmakers want us to see that and they want us to know what they're doing. So back to the story at hand, Wednesday is after the Kansas City scalper, and we get this really cute black and white flashback of young Wednesday doing her investigation for show and tell. The victims on the board are dressed the same way as the dolls at the table, and we learn later he makes these dolls as like a gift, and he makes one for Wednesday as well, and he did the same for the other victims. One of the dolls has one eye, and this we believe, you know, just foreshadows the stalker Crow murderer that we're gonna see later on. We see the 11th victim with the bowling ball that Thing will be snatching from evidence. According to writers, this scene was shot in the production office, and this is a big nod to the Big Lebowski, which both Big Lebowski and Wednesday season 2 both star Steve Buscemi. This bowling ball also has a duck in it, and birds are very important this season. She begins her journey to Kansas via Newark Airport. This is located in New Jersey, and we don't really know where the family resides in the Wednesday series, I don't think. However, the 90s Addams Family did reside in New Jersey because the Addams Family cartoonist, Charles Addams, is originally from Westfield, New Jersey. Also, the man running TSA at the X-ray machine is actually the writer Alfred Goff. We're now in Kansas City, Missouri, and doesn't this scene kind of look like a rundown version of The Neighborhood in Edward Scissorhands? Just a very time-worn version with colorful tints. A reminder again that this episode, like the first episode of last season, is directed by Tim Burton, so I expect to see some Tim Burton-esque inspirations or just natural Tim Burton-esque things to appear. The Kansas City scalper is played by Haley Joel Osment, who's great at playing a bad guy. Also, he's best known for his line, "I see dead people," which just so happens to be what Wednesday can do. His new job is Chet's Pooch Pampering, and I checked the website that's attached to the van, and there was nothing there. I also think we'll return back to him, because why cast Haley Joel Osment for such a small role when this is Haley Joel Osment? Wednesday touches him and then sees the vision of the dolls, and her eyes start to bleed. They needed a visual representation that her powers were glitching now, so they decided on black tears. Initially, she also had black veins accompanying the black tears, but they wanted to simplify everything once it hit VFX, so it was removed. They aim to surpass the comedic excellence of the Piranhas from the first season, if you remember. So Thing and the Kansas City scalper are really just going at it. And also, essentially, Haley Joel Osment is fighting literally nothing. Some parts are CG and some are the man who plays Thing, but for the most part, Haley Joel Osment is just wrestling himself. The actor playing Thing is actually Victor Darabantu, and according to Netflix, to keep Thing's makeup intact on filming days, Victor did everything just single-handed. I guess there's a pun intended there. Then we get into the title sequence, which is a little different from the first season, where they both have the same song and the same initial intros, with Wednesday stepping outside the Nevermore gates. Instead of her typewriter, we get the mask of the stalker with their threats circling it. A shattering of a glass heart that's shattered by electricity, which I think is a reference to Slurp's heart, now replaces the Nightshade Society book. We still get Wednesday's cello being played by a knife, but now it's electrified. As we know, Pugsley will be a bigger part of the story this season, and he's acquired the same electric touch his uncle has, so I presume it has to do with that familial static shock. The Nevermore clock numbers, like a spiral staircase, are now replaced with the knives that transition into the spiral clock numbers with Things stepping up on them. No more shattered glass transitioning into the girl's window with a giant spider. This time, it pulls out to the clock with the spider. Clocks are big things this season, especially in relation to Slurp, whose heart ticks. We now pull out to see Thing's new house, and no more graveyard dusting away, but a doll with a teddy bear decapitated in an electric chair. The doll's little sad babyface bow tie is the same bow tie that was on the doll that Thing jumped out at the beginning of the episode. In the first title sequence, it was all revealed to be in the crystal ball, whereas now it's a black and white tent for the school's little fair that we're going to see in the teaser for part 2. We originally saw a decapitated bear here, now we get a beautiful skull with roses on fire and a crow flying out of its mouth. I think this all references more events we'll see in part 2. We see a kind of Dia de los Muertos party in the part 2 teaser. Instead of the Venus flytrap, we now get the principal's office that has the Medusa fireplace. We now get the skull tree in the woods that Pugsley will wander into. Then it ends with Wednesday, and we see our little girl's eyes, but instead of the dark, eerie stare back from the first season, we now get Wednesday crying black tears. We see a newspaper article for the scalper being scalped in Kansas City Sentinel. Un Mundo Raro by Chavela Vargas plays, and her song La Llorona played in the first episode of the first season to set the tone between Wednesday and her mother. If you zoom in on the newspaper under the photos of LaTroy's victims, it says that they were all connected by similar similar hairstyles. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily true because they all looked a little different, especially Wednesday with the pigtails. Wednesday's faded wallpaper is a throwback to the design of her room in some of the original Addams Family comics, and I found this image here that shows a similar wallpaper with an alligator chasing a human. They're on their way back to Jericho, back to Nevermore Academy, and the beginning of the end really starts here with Wednesday's new mystery. Kiss Me by Sixpence None the Richer plays when Greg and Debbie hug here. And this man, who we later learn is Carl Bradbury, is a private investigator working with Galpin, and he's being taunted, stalked, and eventually murdered by a murder of crows. He says this:
"They're on to me. If I don't make it, the evidence is safe at the bullpen."
Which we'll get into a little bit later, the bullpen of it all. Noah found a collection of crow and raven calls, and these definitely sound like a deeper, throatier raven call to him, but I guess we'll just call them crows because they're calling them crows. As a note, just because I have an immense weird amount of knowledge for like weird animal facts, a good way to tell a raven and a crow apart, other than from their voices, the fact that ravens can mimic actual words or just things that they like, you can also see the difference in their size. Ravens can also be seen solo as opposed to crows that are usually a gather or in a pack, hence the term a murder of crows. Additionally, ravens have a diamond-like shape to their tails, while crows have like a flatter, slightly rounder edge. I just knew this because I just know weird facts about birds and other animals. We return to Nevermore, and Pugsley now attends as well, and Wednesday is of course a celebrity after everything that happened in the first season. One of the first fangirls we meet is Agnes DeMille, played by Evie Templeton, and Agnes DeMille is also the name of a famous ballerina and dancer and choreographer, and we don't know if they specifically named her after that Agnes. However, choreographer Agnes is famous for Oklahoma, which this Agnes kind of looks like she could be in, so I don't know if this is like deliberate shade or just wanting to serve Wednesday realness. Later, when Wednesday sets off a crossbow trap, she tries to use her power to see who the stalker is, but she can't because Agnes can turn invisible. Fun fact, they're good with their timing. We meet the siren, Bianca Barclay, played by Joy Sunday, who also gets a bigger, deeper role this season and we'll get into once it comes up. Then we meet Steve Buscemi, the new cast member, replacing the old principal. He's playing Principal Dort. He's purposely designed to be based on Edgar Allan Poe, even with his hair. He says he wants to return Nevermore to the glory days, which what exactly does that mean? Because I think he's suspicious and we should keep clocking it. And it returns as well, and I like that she got Wednesday a shirt from Lupin Palooza. It's around the exact same time as Lollapalooza, because I think Lollapalooza ended last week, so I don't think they did it on purpose, but great timing. Pugsley is bunked with Eugene, who called the bees to help at the end of the last season, and they're in Caliban Hall. The four Nevermore houses are actually inspired by Shakespearean characters. Ophelia Hall is a nod to Hamlet. Caliban Hall is a nod to the characters from The Tempest. We also see Caliban around the fireplace along with Be Not Afeared, which is from The Tempest, and of course, Thesby Hall and Pug Hall are both references to A Midsummer's Night Dream. We also get the Lago Tower, and Lago is the villain of Othello. You'll see their sigils also on their clothes that reflect their halls, but in episode 3 during the Zephyr games, you can really get a better look at their clothes perfectly with their sigils. Then we learn that Xavier is heading to an academy in Switzerland for boys, and the actor playing Xavier, Percy Hines White, departed the show following its first season after he was accused of sexual misconduct on X in January of 2023. Hines has addressed the allegations, however, it doesn't seem like the actor is returning, although his presence is still vaguely there. Reichenbach is also another literary reference. The Reichenbach Falls is a waterfall in Switzerland and was the location of Sherlock Holmes' death, though Sir Arthur Conan Doyle would later revive the character. Marilyn Thornhill's old room is now offered to Morticia for the night, and Wednesday mentions her aunt Ophelia. Ophelia Frump originally was the sister of Morticia Addams in most of the Addams Family backstory, however, we just haven't met her in the show yet. When we get to the exterior shot of this cabin, it says Rotwood Cottage. Lady Gaga is appearing in season 2, part 2 as the character Rosalind Rotwood, a legendary Nevermore student who crosses paths with Wednesday according to Netflix. She doesn't seem to be linked to any other original Wednesday characters and might have just been made for the show, but she does sing and dance in her episode. Back at the crime scene, we meet Richie Santiago again, the deputy who worked alongside Galpin last season, and this season they've replaced Sheriff Galpin completely after everything that went down. At the crime scene, Wednesday confronts Galpin, who is trying to get to the bottom of this murder, but she turns away, yet she's still a bit intrigued. Also, she says this:
"It's a shame your keen psychological insight couldn't help you save your own son."
Which, ooh, that's gotta hurt. That's low. That's low blow. Back with the boys, they tell their story about another boy with a bad heart. He creates a heart to replace his old one, and in this flashback, there are a couple things I like to flag. Netflix has noted how this season draws inspiration from such classic films like Frankenstein, Night of the Living Dead, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and the scene gives Frankenstein realness. We also get some more Poe references here because the skull tree with a body buried beneath it is likely a reference to the Gold Bug, a story written by Poe where a literal skull and a tree marked with the location of 2 bodies buried beneath it, along with a wealth of treasure. The second reference is actually the ticking heart. This goes back to the Telltale Heart, where the narrator murders an old man and hides his body in the floorboards. But as the cops ask them questions about the murder, the narrator begins to hallucinate the beating of the heart and confesses to their crime. The cafe or food stand that we see in the middle of the courtyard is also of the same reference. There's damage done to the top of the clock tower that we saw earlier, and now I assume it's because of this idiot that caused the damage per the flashback story. We'll later learn that this is Slurp, the zombie. So based on the fact that Slurp recognized Stonehurst, I think we can assume that the hospital he was really at was Willow Hills Asylum. And I'm thinking maybe he didn't design the heart himself, but was perhaps one of the experiments done on as a patient. The stop motion animation was done by Mackinnon and Saunders, who were the talented team that brought us such works as Corpse Bride and Fantastic Mr. Fox and even Bob the Builder. I like that Dort, when talking to Bianca, points out that Edgar Allan Poe on his wall and he looks exactly like him. And it creates a small home for Thing in his own spot and their spot. And according to Netflix, making the intricate objects in Thing's apartment required hand stitching and laser cutting. In this scene you can see it better now, but Enid's nails are freaking long, but they're also very colorful. They start with strong tones and they'll get lighter as the season continues, which could reflect her transformation as she's still navigating her wolf puberty, or could foreshadow that she's gonna die soon. I don't know. I don't think she's gonna die, and if she does die, I feel like she can be brought back. But I think the nails mean something. Wednesday starts performing the Dance of the Knights from Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet. According to the music producer, Jenna Ortega actually learns the pieces so she can accurately perform them in the right spots on the instrument. We see Morticia opening her sister's journal with the crow marking on the outside. Inside are drawings or etchings of a woman screaming and written over and over, repeating black tears like a woman descending into madness. We watch Pugsley revive the tarantula because our man is about to play real Frankenstein. Thing puts a pinky ring on with a knight chess piece on it, and this perhaps has some personal connection to Thing that we just haven't learned yet. And Galpin drinks himself to death while watching home videos of his son. Wednesday is interrupted by Miss Capri,
the new head of music,
played by Billie Piper, and her style is also inspired by musician Florence Welch. We think she might be an avian, but her first classical album was called Wolf Howl, so maybe she is a werewolf like people have suggested online. But also her character being a once famous musician might be a nod to Billie Piper's start as also a pop star.
I didn't realize I had any fans left.
She's still very famous. She's just, quit music after getting famous at like 15 and started focusing on acting, so that's what I mean. Dort calls these children the Da Vinci's, and there's a bunch of different groups that we're actually exploring this season, and the Da Vinci's feel like artists that have some form of levitation or just telekinesis. In this scene, this could be Socrates, Wednesday's pet octopus that is painted on the wall in the background of her attic at home. It could also be Aristotle, who was Pugsley's octopus from the 1960s show, and in the original comic, he was painted on the foot of her bed. Later at the event, after the Alma Mater song, the principal plays Dancing in the Dark by Bruce Springsteen, which is actually pretty wild because the whole "you can't start a fire without a spark" line, which is what they all want to do, which could kill Wednesday in this moment.
They're gonna light this thing any second!
It's all on the nose. We also learn his powers is pyrokinesis and the ability to create fire. And this is yet another example of where I think he was born a normie. What could be more normie behavior than rocking out to Bruce Springsteen? And then he keeps saying stuff like fellow outcasts and I just don't know. I think it's suspicious. I think we should all be suspicious. He also abolishes the nightshades, which if I'm right about how he got his powers from Lois, he likely did this because he doesn't want the nightshades finding out about him or the abused outcast. After creating a mural and applauding Wednesday and her friends for saving the school, Wednesday sets that mural on fire in anger, not wanting to be loved or cheered for, not wanting to be put on a pedestal. And this scene is really giving Wednesday at the first Thanksgiving and Addams Family values, just setting everything ablaze after a glorious speech. Pugsley goes to the skull tree alone and accidentally shocks the ground when he falls, which leads to reanimating Slurp. So now we've got a murderous zombie on the loose. Enid catches up with Wednesday and gets a vision, and her eyes leak black again, and in this vision, it's a bunch of crows and a tombstone for Enid, and she screams,
I die because of you!
Great, so now Enid's probably gonna die. Episode 2 is titled The Devil You Woe, a play off The Devil You Know, and this little title page gives us a little knife because we're gonna end the episode almost impaled to death. Netflix flagged multiple items in Morticia's cottage are a nod to Addams Family TV series from the 1960s. There's a stuffed bear in here, an Iron Maiden, and a taxidermy tortoise, and a fan bag chair. She stops at Galpin's house and the windows are boarded up and people have tagged the house with guilty and evil lives here. Inside we find Galpin dead, eyes gone, just like Brady, and the crow launches from his mouth. And then
Freeze! You're under arrest.
Wednesday gets arrested. Later we meet Slurp and we even see his homemade heart. The character is being entirely played by someone, even here, and it's Owen Painter. It took between 3 and 5 hours every day to prepare Owen to play Slurp the zombie, and the process originally took about 10 hours according to Netflix. We learned today is prank day at Nevermore, so everyone's gonna be yanking our chains this episode.
Got ya! Happy prank day!
We're outside for prank day and You Really Got Me by the Kinks begins playing. We know why they're playing that, because you got me. Prank day. Then we meet another new cast member, Christopher Lloyd, playing Professor Orloff, a man whose head is preserved in a jar. As you know, Christopher Lloyd also played Uncle Fester in the 90s Addams Family movies, and it's just great to see him return. Professor Orloff tells Wednesday she's looking for an avian.
We haven't had an avian enrolled for at least 10 years.
So we're one step closer to figuring out who the stalker and killer is. With Morticia and Bianca at the cottage, she's showing off the shrunken heads.
That's Uncle Vasco on the left.
Actor Luis Guzman was scanned and one of the heads is based on his likeness. Wednesday takes Enid's place in driving school, and I like that the name here is Third Wheel Driving School.
I'm the captain of this ship, young lady.
And when she does the I'm the captain now,
I'm the captain now.
it's just a great moment. Wednesday then drives to Willow Hill Psychiatric Hospital where Tyler's being kept, and this is where we meet Judy, played by Heather Matarazzo from The Princess Diaries. Then we meet Dr. Fairbairn, played by Tawny Newton from Westworld. Wednesday meets Tyler again, and let me tell you, nothing good comes out of this meeting but seeing this man's stomach. And I'm sorry, I'm no better than a man, and I know it, but this boy's constantly playing a monster. He just got done with Daredevil Born Again, murdering people there too. And also, he's such a poser because he's not chained up to the wall. Why is he back there like this? He moves forward. He does not need to pose against the wall. He could also just sit on his bed. Whatever, man's fine as hell. You need some kind of presence online. If your social media profile is not cutting the mustard, it's time to get yourself a real website. The best way to do that is with Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one tool that gives you everything you need to make a website that looks good and does whatever you need it to do. If you're selling goods or services, Squarespace can help you untangle digital payment platforms with just a few clicks, making it super easy to start receiving payments right away using popular payment methods like Apple Pay, ACH Direct Debit, Klarna, and more. If you're not a graphic designer, don't worry. Squarespace's design intelligence tool makes it so easy to get your website looking just right. It combines 2 decades of industry-leading design expertise with cutting-edge AI technology. Every Squarespace website is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions, an auto-generated sitemap, and more, so you show up more often to more people in global search engine results. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/newrockstars to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Bruno and Enid are kidnapped and Thing is locked in his suitcase, well, his apartment suitcase. We later see Enid and Bruno are tied up and under a bunch of different knives and blades. The Lago Clock Tower, where we're currently at, is a massive set. The structure is all steel and has a working elevator. To make the blades not kill Enid and Bruno, Wednesday has to learn the code that's in these vintage books, these very, very vintage books. Wednesday mentions that there's Poe, Edgar Allan Poe, and Dante there. Amongst the books, we get to see Mary Shelley's collection, The Last Man, Volume 2 and 3, and Faulkner, Volume 1 and 3, her final novel, The Fortune of Perkin Warbeck, Matilda and Lador, and Valperga. Dickens' Child's History of England and Christmas Stories, Dombey and Son, Barnaby Rudge and Edwin Drood, and the life and characters of Dickens. We see Marcel Proust. She mentions Russian author Leo Tolstoy, who made War and Peace. She then goes on to mention H.G. Wells. Then out of nowhere drops Babysitter's Club, and I don't know if this copy of Babysitter's Club is necessarily a clue, but 131 covers a dramatic storyline where Mary Ann and her family experience a house fire that destroys their home, and they have to deal with survival in the aftermath of the fire. And the story covers how Mary Ann will cope with loss and if her family will actually move away. On the cover it says, "Can Mary Ann rise from the ashes?" which I think gives more hints that the new principal is behind a lot more than we are led to believe. Seeing as his powers involve fire and he may be the one that was experimented on and he's trying to hide his past, but Wednesday's just snooping a little too much for comfort. Enid then asks how many of them are there, and Wednesday says this is issue 131, and she responds, "That's all of them unless you're counting the graphic novels," which is actually true. This is the final book for the main Babysitter's Club series before the Friends Forever series. Of the H.G. Wells collection, it's missing the Invisible Man, which is the code to stop the knives from falling, and lo and behold, we get our own invisible woman? It's Agnes, the 13-year-old fangirl, the manuscript fire, and this was all of her, and honestly, I hate her for it, but she's gonna be very helpful in solving the Galpin mystery. And just when you thought it was enough and enough was enough and we were done, we then see the loose zombie killing the driving instructor, which is great. Great news. Murderous zombie, just what we need. And then we move on to the 3rd episode. Episode 3 is titled Call of the Woe, and for this little title sequence we get a little tent because we're going camping. We learn that the more Slurp eats, the more human he becomes. He's growing back his brain, and Pugsley befriends this zombie, which I feel like is a bad idea. Maybe that's just me, Pugsley. We learned that Bianca's mom was part of a cult called Morning Song, and we learned about them last season. They created a self-help app that essentially just scammed people out of their money, and Bianca's mom was married to Gideon, the leader of Morning Song, and now she's basically hiding and on the run run from them while everything's going down. So now Wednesday is headed to the school's overnight camping trip so she can wander and find the bullpen and find some evidence or a lead connected to Galpin and Bradbury's murder. As they head to the campgrounds, aka Camp Jericho, I Walk by a Zombie begins playing, which perfectly fits the theme, you know, a camp trip where a zombie is on the loose. It turns out the camp has been double booked. The camp leader Ron Kruger is played by Anthony Michael Hall, so now Nevermore students and the Phoenix Cadets are now competing for the camp, and this feels like the rowing tournament that we got in the first season. The cadets get the Zephyr, and the Nevermore calls in the Hounds, which are Bruno and Enid, and they run in on all fours. According to Netflix, to achieve the four-legged werewolf galloping, stunt performers were attached to suspended wire rigs, and this allowed them to actually run on the ground at a faster pace. Then we hear Ride of the Valkyries, and our iconic girl walks through the gas unaffected and races back to the lookout post. It turns out here, Jenna Ortega actually performed this Zephyr-winning zip line stunt herself, which go off, Jenna. And she wins the camp for Nevermore. Yay! Forget about those normies. Then we get a cover for Bad Moon Rising, and it's sung by Chicago Oscar winner Catherine Zeta-Jones. So of course, why not have her sing? According to the music supervisors, they wanted to find a moment for her to sing in season 2 alongside Billie Piper, and here it was. Wednesday arrives at the cabin and discovers all the evidence Galpin had been collecting. All of these outcasts are actually linked to Lois, which again we'll get into at the end of episode 4. Wednesday and Morticia decide to duel with blindfolds in the woods to settle their ongoing feud this last couple episodes, and the famous Barcelona architect Antoni Gaudi actually inspired these swords. The handguards of the weapons actually share Gaudi's signature spindles and twisted lines. The episode ends with Wednesday losing to her mom but stopping the zombie who has already killed at least one person already, and this is the cover of Losing My Religion by REM. Then it's revealed that Christina Ricci is back as Marilyn Thornhill, but she's being transferred to Willow Hill where Tyler's at, so bad news bears all around. This is a bad idea. We move into the final episode for part 1, episode 4, titled If These Woes Couldn't Talk, and Marilyn, now having been transferred to Willow Hill, she divulges a cryptic rumor that Willow Hill has been experimenting on their patients, which we later find out is actually true, and Fairburn jokes back there's also alien autopsies in the basement, and I wouldn't necessarily call them aliens or autopsies, but y'all do got something going on. Fairburn allows Thornhill to see Tyler face to face, and he practically seethes, begging to kill her, almost killing her, and clearly she's very delusional about their dynamic, thinking he still loves her like a mommy. Then we meet Grandma Hester Frump, played by Joanna Lumley from Everything But Girl. You know I know her from Absolutely Fabulous. There's only so many times that Wednesday actually smiles, but I like that both her grandma and when we're first introduced to Uncle Fester in season 1 both make her smile just massively. According to Netflix, Grandma Hester Frump's style, especially her hair, is largely influenced by Daphne Guinness. During the scene, Grandma has Wednesday sniff the urn and she can smell all these hints of animals, but no human remains at all, so someone has all those outcasts that have been pretending to be dead somewhere probably still alive. You can see Grandma has a fine martini in this insanely thin and tall glass shaped just like her and Morticia, and the crew tried 36 different glasses allegedly before finding this perfect one, and I also think she's drinking a slightly, you know, more thematic Bloody Mary, you know what I'm saying? Grandma then buys the cemetery for Wednesday and later will give her the death certificates of the outcasts, and it confirms Augustus Stonehurst had signed the death certificates, who is still living at Willow Hill. Then Uncle Fester arrives, played by Fred Armisen. Literally everyone's returning or just new big people in the second season. Wednesday needs him to sneak into Willow Hill, and this is where we learn a little bit more about Aunt Ophelia.
Aunt Ophelia was in there? When?
Years ago, but she'd already flown the coop by the time I got committed. I stuck around for a few weeks. They had a top-notch electroshock therapist, Igor. He ran a gulag in Siberia.
We're learning that Ophelia dipped that hospital, so she's been just missing this entire time. Fester also mentioned that Igor was operating the electroshock table, which has got to be a reference to Igor, the hunchbacked assistant to Frankenstein. Uncle Fester purposefully gets himself committed by acting out, which is very funny to me. He's listening to I Wanna Know What Love Is by Foreigner, and I just like how he's just making himself look like a Looney Tune. What's even funnier is in this line about him having 13 passports and 33 licenses and learning that Fred Armisen posed for every one of these photos. And my favorite is also Fester Fiesta. Of course it would be. We learned from Morticia during her sophomore year at Nevermore, Ophelia was found screaming in the quad with black tears streaming down her cheeks. Ophelia had pushed her psychic abilities just too far and was sent away. And Morticia was aware that her sister's condition would deteriorate at Willow Hill, but her concerns fell on deaf ears, ultimately because the grandma had Ophelia committed. When Grandma then demands Goody's book be given back to Wednesday, she tosses it in the fire, and we don't know how much damage that will actually do, but it may be something we return to in part 2. From Morticia's face though, you can tell she regrets throwing it into that fire in the first place. While Fester's going through it happily, Dean Martin's Ain't That a Kick in the Head plays, which is great for, you know, I guess an insane asylum. In Fester's brain scan, we see a bullet and several nails, perhaps the nail gun Wednesday threatened Agnes with, a razor blade, scissors, a fish hook, and a paper clip, and there's also something stuck up his nose. Then he meets the lunch lady, and he gets her name mistaken for Lois because of all the food just splattered on her name tag, but then when it's wiped away it says Louise, and then he makes out with her. He's living his best life. I can't be mad about it. Wednesday chases the hooded figure into the music room, and also there's a cage of songbirds in the music room, so is she an avian or not? I don't know. Dr. Fairburn says that music soothes the savage beast, which sounds like she wants to use Capri's lessons as part of Tyler's therapy. We finally meet Augustus Stonehurst. He hangs out in a cage with birds. Fitting. We learn later from Professor Orloff he was a normie professor at Nevermore. We also learned that he had a wife who died before he got to Nevermore, but he had a daughter whom he built an aviary for in Iago Tower. Wednesday sneaks into Willow Hill and we get a piano cover of Zombie by the Cranberries, which of course is still very fitting seeing as Slurp's escaping. Now on their search to find Lois, Slurp starts attacking the guards. Thornhill and Wednesday cross paths but continue on their way, and the sirens alarm and Wednesday and Fester find where they're keeping the outcast. This is what Sheriff Galpin was afraid would happen to Tyler. So this is when it's revealed that the stalker, Avian, is actually Judy. The Judy reveal scene was actually filmed on the actress's first day on set, and regardless of all of that, it's revealed that her father, Augustus Stonehurst, was experimenting on outcasts to try to contain their abilities and offer them to normies. Let's break it down. So Lois isn't a person, but a project. Long-term outcast integration study. Judy's father wanted to become a Da Vinci with telekinetic abilities, but his body couldn't handle it, and he ended up being a patient at this facility. Before he messed himself up, he experimented on his daughter, and she successfully turned herself into an avian. Insane. What's going on with these families in this show? Wednesday helps this woman who she thought was Lois, and I think this woman will be revealed to be Ophelia somehow in part 2. I think when she disappeared from Willow Hill, she was actually just abducted by Stonehurst. Now with unhinged Tyler, he offers Thornhill a head start to outrun him, and let me tell you, I've seen better running from a toddler. Girl, the urgency here, it just was not there. Fun fact, for hide scenes, they actually have stunt performers use crutches and aluminum stilts. Just a little fun fact. What's interesting is Thornhill mentioned that they can't kill their masters, but Goff told Netflix when you kill your master, a Hyde will eventually go crazy. So for part 2, we'll be getting a completely unhinged, free rampant Hyde just running around. Then we learn that Augustus and Slurp knew each other. In the teaser for part 2, we see a better looking Slurp, so he'll be more human, more talkative. Maybe we'll hear from him how close they actually were. However, right now, he's killing Stonehurst, which I'm sure will piss off Judy. Then, perfect, just what we need. The Hyde confronts Wednesday and smacks her out the window. Wednesday's window stunt was explained by Netflix and took a lot of work. A horizontal window was built on a soundstage and Jenna Ortega was suspended above it. Then she was dropped through and the window was made out of glass sugar, which was crumbly, like a cookie texture. And the rocky ground Wednesday actually falls onto is made of high compression rubber. So, you know, Jenna Ortega's safe, Wednesday's in a coma. Netflix has already given us a part 2 teaser and we know that Wednesday is in a coma after this incident and all hell is breaking loose with more zombies in it, I assume turning into that werewolf. And of course, Tyler's just hanging out. Part 2 drops September 3rd with the final 4 episodes for this season, and there are so many storylines to close. The grandma and Ophelia, who's been missing for 20 years, and will her downfall look anything like Wednesday's? What the hell is Tyler gonna be doing? Is he coherent enough to search for Wednesday as a Hyde? Is Slurp a good zombie or a bad zombie? Because I still can't tell. Is Judy still after Wednesday, or will she try to find who killed her father instead? The woman that Wednesday broke out of Willow Hill, who really is she? Is she Ophelia? Is she even a good guy? And can someone please point me in the way of Fester Fiesta? He owes me $20. All right, let's get into it. The season opens with Wednesday in a coma after being thrown out the window by Tyler at the end of the previous episode. Continuing the series' love of Shakespeare references, most notably in dorm names like Caliban Hall, Morticia reads Macbeth to Wednesday.
By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes.
This is spoken by one of the 3 witches in Macbeth who at the beginning of the play foretold that Macbeth would become the King of Scotland before being overthrown. Their powers of foresight are very similar to Wednesday's own psychic powers. Wednesday wakes to see Principal Weems, played by Gwendolyn Christie. She's back from season 1. Weems, it seems, is Wednesday's new spirit guide. Goody Addams was her last spirit guide, but Weems reminds us that Goody gave up the ghost to save Wednesday. Netflix shared some of their details from this season, and according to them, while last season's wardrobe for Weems was inspired by the actress in the of birds. This season, it channeled Kim Novak's in Vertigo, even down to the bun with the hole at the top. Judy Stonehurst and Sheriff Santiago put out a notice for the arrest of Fester, John Doe Zombie, and Tyler Galpin, and we learned that Willow Hill has been closed, and thank God for that. Patient 1938 is still missing, and the other escapees have just been killed at the order of Judy. 1938 is also a nod to the year that Charles Addams first published the Addams Family comics. Judy brings Lilies to Wednesday's hospital room, which is really funny because that was her name in the Princess Diaries. If you're old or you're young and you like the Princess Diaries, you caught this. Wednesday also wears a shirt with, fittingly, a passage from Edgar Allan Poe's short story titled The Pit and the Pendulum. At the hospital, Wednesday's given dead flowers from Tyler, who is still out to kill her and Enid. Wednesday gives chase but loses him in the hospital, but she does run into another character from the first season, the guide from the Pilgrim World, Arlene. In season 1, Arlene worked at Pilgrim World, where Wednesday went undercover to retrieve Goldie's book. Arlene is touring around with a band of mariachis, and we'll see why later. Meanwhile, Bianca and Ajax hide Gabrielle, Bianca's mother, in Iago Tower. She explains that Gideon started the morning song cult to actually help Outcast, and Bianca was Gideon's favorite growing up until she learned he was grooming her to replace Gabrielle, which is especially creepy because Gideon and Gabrielle were married, so why would you do that to your stepdaughter? That's weird. We'll later learn that the morning songs were actually created by Barry Dort, who used Gideon as a frontman for the cult. In the courtyard, when Wednesday turns around, you actually can see the staples in the back of her head from the fall last episode. And in the courtyard, speaking of Dort and speaking of it all, I love the shade that Weems throws at him.
It's a carnival barker masquerading as an educator.
Pugsley's now feeding his parents' carnivorous Venus flytrap, and Morticia's owned one of these bad boys throughout a lot of the Addams Family lore. Her name was Cleopatra. We also learned that Alfie Penn, Capri's boyfriend, was a Hyde who turned into a monster and attacked her and was shot dead. And there's so much revolving around this. We see in the newspaper article that Alfie Penn's master was controversial art impresario Minerva Garrick, and then Penn transformed and killed Garrick by accident. Capri says she fought Alfie off because it was a full moon, and she's a werewolf. She's also wearing leopard print again, which I think is a pattern that runs through all of her outfits, just representing that she's an animal. We see at the very end of the season, Capri is on some sus stuff here, but she doesn't go full like villain this season. In our last video, we theorized that Capri was related to Stonehurst in some way, but that turned out to be a miss on my part. But I still think she reads as a little suspicious. Morticia can sense that Weems is there, and they used to be roommates back at Nevermore. And we also learned that Weems is technically related to the Addams, which is why she's also able to be Wednesday's spirit guide. Go figure. This is also another reason as to why we should have all believed Ophelia had to be alive, because why was she never Wednesday's spirit guide if she was dead? It seems like they're a match made in heaven if she were dead. Gomez and Pugsley go to Pilgrim World, which is hosting an event called Los Spooky Noches, Mayflower meets Mariachi, which Gomez then calls out for its appropriation of Mexican culture.
What a motley skeleton crew.
It's also funny that the zombie walks past a bunch of people dressed as a zombie, also like they're appropriating his culture, but nah, you get it, it's just a joke. There's no culture in being a zombie. Slurp then wanders into the haunted hacienda and walks past a large bust of Joseph Crackstone, the villain from last season. Then he does what zombies do. He eats some brains. Pugsley, along with the cops, follows the ruckus to be reunited with his zombie friend Slurp, who's talking now, and we'll later learn is really named Isaac Knight, and he convinces Pugsley to let him go. Outside, Gomez and Isaac have a moment where they see each other, and this is later given more context because these two were actually old friends and roommates in Nevermore, but we'll get into that a little later down the line. Speaking of old friends, patient 1938 drops in on Morticia, and she's revealed to be Francois Galpin, Tyler's mother, and Isaac's sister. Also, she and Morticia used to be friends while at Nevermore, and like everyone in this show has to be connected in some way or another. Like, that's just how it has to happen. Nevermore is having an Outcast Day of Remembrance where we see depictions honoring Cyclops, Yeti, and the Minotaur, outcast tribes that went extinct. This is just also a cool piece of world building, like all the myths about these creatures were really outcast stories. Tyler attacks the event as a Hyde, but his mother also transforms and stops him. She and Tyler promise to leave town, but of course, they're lying. Then at the end of the episode, Enid transforms, but it's not a full moon, and this is the first hint that she's actually an alpha. Episode 6 starts with a wild montage of Wednesday dressing and acting like Enid, and I mean, she's going really deep into it, and Jenna Ortega seems to have a really good sense of range as an actor, and I really like it. I think she did a really good job this episode. The both of them did great. The two have spoken about difficulties and fun swapping these roles, and it's actually just really sweet and endearing, and I love this for them. Wednesday and her family briefed Dorton Sheriff Santiago about last night, and for his part, Barry sure is eager to move past all of this. That's because he's just doing all of this to get to Grandma Frump's money, and he really doesn't care if the outcasts are trying to kill each other. Wednesday's powers haven't been working right, and Weems tells her that the emotional turmoil with her mom is the cause for this, which Wednesday of course denies, but this tension will play out over the next few episodes. Professor Orloff tells Wednesday that Francois used to be Frances Knight, sister of Isaac Knight, aka Slurp the Zombie, and Isaac's mentor was Stonehurst, who built him a secret lab in Iago Tower. We're just getting reveals left and right now in this episode. Now with Frances and Tyler, she slaps the crap out of her son, and I mean, I get it. No, I don't actually get it, because this poor boy has been traumatized and taken advantage of too many times, just manipulated by different people trying to be a weird parental figure, and then he just gets smacked up in this one. Like, okay, Tyler's a monster, but calm down. So are you. Capri catches up with Enid and tells her that transforming when there's no full moon means she's likely an alpha, a rare strong breed of werewolf. And Grandma Hester tells Wednesday about Professor Rosalind Rotwood, a raven like them who taught runes and ancient cryptography. She can get her mojo back by reciting the inscription on Rotwood's tomb, and when she does, we get the best cameo in the show, because the ghost of Rosalind Rotwood is played by Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga! Rosalind can give Wednesday her powers back, but tells her that if she's interrupted, there will be dire consequences. And of course, they get some dire consequences. Our girl's interrupted because Enid catches up with her and pulls her off the tomb, breaking the spell. And now as punishment for breaking the spell, Wednesday and Enid have to swap bodies.
No. No, 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 no. Enid? What the hell happened to me?
Enid tries to wear bright clothing and learns that Wednesday actually was allergic to color all along because she breaks out into hives. And according to Tadoom, the style of Wednesday's clothes is based off Harajuku fashion, and the prosthetics for her allergic reaction actually took 2 hours to apply. During the breakout, they're playing Boombayah by Blackpink. The song was also written directly into the script, which you should know is a crazy thing in film. If they write the songs into the scripts, they usually just get taken out, but they were like, nope, it has to be Blackpink. Meanwhile, Francois and Isaac have a reunion, and we learn that Stonehurst stole Isaac's idea to build a machine that gave powers to normies. And I feel like Owen Painter, the actor playing Isaac, is really putting on a lot of energy into this performance. It's kind of like his audition tape for the Joker or something. While Wednesday snoops around in Enid's body, she discovers Morticia is secretly a writer of books like Kisses and Coffins under the pen name Barbara Jean Day. And I love this. They're like a mother-daughter sword-fighting writer duo, and it's really fun. This is also the name of Charles Addams, the creator of the Addams Family, his first wife's name, Barbara Jean Day. During a family dinner, Morticia and Gomez decide it's time to lay down the law because they know both their kids have been sneaking around and lying to them. Morticia says, your father and I have tried to instill our family values into you, which I think could be a reference, maybe, to the 1993 film Addams Family Values, my favorite one. Meanwhile, Isaac eats Professor Orloff's brain, and it's actually kind of gory. I was not expecting this much blood. Also, Isaac, I think, drives a Prius, which is kind of funny to me. Wednesday and Enid finally come back together, understanding and professing all their quarrels, all their bad grief. They're finally getting along, and they really did kind of do a Freaky Friday swap. Then it's revealed that Enid no longer is the one dying in the visions. Oh no, it's an Addams now. Now on to episode 7, Woe Me the Money. Like, show me the money, because this is a money-hungry, grubbing episode where things start getting really great for those Bianca fans out there. We open at a Tiki Tales cocktail bar in Morning Song, Florida 15 years ago. Inside the Tiki bar, we see a tank that literally holds siren performers, and according to Tadoom, the tank was 7 feet deep, 6 feet wide, and about 20 feet long. And one of the sirens is Camilla Jabber, who is a globally ranked free diver. Barry Dort meets Arnold Hunt, and Barry says he saw Arnold in the Crucible at the Jupiter Diner Theater playing John Proctor, and that all the women in the audience were really swooning over him. The Crucible was a play about the Salem witch trials, where a group of young girls are accused of witchcraft after being caught dancing in the woods, and they in turn start accusing other people of witchcraft to shift the blame. John Proctor is one of the main characters who tries to defend his wife, who's accused of being a witch, but he's also, in doing so, becomes accused of being a witch as well. So John ends up being hanged instead of admitting guilt, though his pregnant wife is spared, which in a weird way kind of feels like Arnold is kind of living his own The Crucible story. He's faking his nature, he gets rocked for it and tries to shift the blame, but in the end he's killed even though he'd be telling the truth. So we also learned that Arnold used to play the character Gideon Sterling on a soap opera called Medical Affairs, and that's where the cult leader persona came from. Barry tells Arnold he meets a lot of broken people, especially outcasts, and wants to help them by creating a place where like-minded people can come together, basically like a cult. Barry recruits Arnold to be the face of the movement because he doesn't think he can do it himself. And I think all of this might have been what the Latin in the book all the way back in episode 1 was alluding to, because it talked about a secretive group formed to help outcasts. Gabrielle, Bianca's mom, is the siren that Dort used to be a manager for, and Dort says he introduced Bianca to Gideon, but like, she was already working at the bar, so this would have been before the cult started. Later in the episode, we learn that these are New England corpse moths, and they will return to their host body to lay their eggs. So they're on the search to go find their host, which is Isaac. And funny enough, they kinda already found it at the beginning when it landed on Thing's finger in the bunker. Dort introduces a model for the School of the Mortuary Sciences at Front Tower, and gosh, could that be a reference to anything? Perhaps. He appeals to her history as a mortuary owner, but she's intent on turning him down until he has Bianca step in and siren song her into leaving her entire fortune to Nevermore. Grandma says that she and Barry intend to ban all the outcasts without an ability from Nevermore. And this is something I was really curious about because in season 1, Wednesday joined before she knew she was a psychic. And I always wondered, why was she allowed in if she wasn't really an outcast? But being an outcast is just like a term anyone can use, as it turns out. So like, all the people with their powers are outcasts, but not all the outcasts have powers, if that makes sense. Arnold confronts Dort and asks for his money, only for Dort to go full homicidal and burn him alive. For some reason, all I could think of was, who is gonna clean up all these ashes? The ashes got literally everywhere. There has to be bones someplace, right? Like, who's gonna clean all this up? Bianca's gonna siren song someone to clean it up. Now at the gala, according to Doom, the soundstage was also the site where the skull tree was and Morticia and Wednesday's sword fight was held. They just flipped and redid it, you know, movie magic. They had 2.5 weeks to transform the woodsy set into this giant affair. Agnes and Enid end up making up here, and Agnes helps Enid in her dance routine for the upcoming gala to celebrate the donors, at which Grandma Frump is the guest of honor. And during Agnes and Enid's dance routine, Agnes steals Dort's anti-siren necklace, so we know what's about to happen. There's a little movement where Agnes gets the choreography wrong and switches up her pose to match Enid's, and I really like this because it makes sense that Agnes, who hasn't done this before, wouldn't be perfect at the dance yet. And this is also a new original song by Lady Gaga, written specifically for the series, which, what an honor. The Dead Dance, after the Lady Gaga, Bloody Mary, and Goo Goo Mug dance went viral, it only makes sense to bring in the real queen. This dance was also filmed using a placeholder track with the same beats per minute to maintain its secrecy. So all of this, when it was revealed to the cast as well. Bianca forces Dort to explain to everyone what he did, and Gabrielle looks pretty shocked about Gideon's death, which makes sense because they were, and I mean, technically they might still be married. I mean, the guy was an asshole, like, don't get me wrong, he did suck, but of course she's gonna have a reaction to it. Anyways, Dort makes a run for it, but Ajax stones him with his hair, and Dort is then crushed to death by a falling chandelier that he caused, so don't think someone else did it. He caused the chandelier to fall on himself. The final episode of season 2 is titled, This Means Woe. It opens with Wednesday quoting the Nobel Prize winning American novelist William Faulkner from his 1951 novel Requiem for a Nun. Morticia, Grandma Frump, and Wednesday come together to try and find Pugsley, and Morticia leads them in casting a spell, and the incantation starts with doves and ravens together ignite with wings of darkness and piercing eyes. This language calls back to the pages of Goody's book that we translated in the last video, so I wouldn't be surprised if Morticia has been secretly just reading it. As we learn at the end of the season, she didn't actually burn it, but on the page it talked about the doves and ravens clashing and the ability to see into the future. Wednesday has a vision of Morticia and Gomez burying Isaac under the skull tree from back when they were students at Nevermore, and we're now getting the full version of the legend about the skull tree in the first episode. Isaac tricked Gomez into powering the machine that would take away Francis's powers, and knowing that in the process Gomez would die. The machine exploded instead, killing Isaac and leaving Gomez without his powers. Meanwhile, Agnes approaches Enid with a list of potential new boyfriend names since Bruno is now out of the picture, and I looked at the list of these names and I could not find a connection to the series. These might just be like random names. Wednesday goes to meet Isaac, Francois, and Tyler in the woods and gives the Thing a crossbow that Agnes used as a trap early in season 2. The crossbow has like a sniper scope, and I just want to examine that because we get a POV shot of Thing looking through the scope, and how is he doing that? He's a hand. But Isaac captures Thing, and in a twist I did not see coming, it's revealed that Thing is Isaac's hand. Isaac sews it back onto himself using his psychic powers, and now it's in his like final form. He buries Wednesday alive and takes Pugsley to the tower where he rebuilds his machine. In that moment, they reveal that Knight is an anagram for Thing, which honestly is a very fun touch. But an added bonus is that the actor playing Isaac made sure not to move his right hand as to keep the continuity that his hand was always gone on throughout the entire season. Agnes saw this all happen and gets Enid, who turns into her werewolf form and gets Wednesday out. A cute note is that her werewolf form has her dyed hair and lighter fur, and it's funny because earlier when Wednesday was in Enid's body and wolfed out, she had black fur, so like the wolf sona reflects the soul, not the body, which might be something to look at in season 3. Francois has Isaac strap Tyler into the machine instead of herself in an attempt to cure him of his Hyde status before it can kill him, but Wednesday and Morticia sneak in and free both Tyler and Pugsley, and Tyler then hides out and attacks Isaac, so Francois also hides out and attacks Tyler. It's just a hideout. Wednesday watches them fight, saying,
I haven't enjoyed a mother-son relationship like this since Psycho.
However, she kind of saves Tyler here. The man out to kill her almost every season. She says it's because she missed, but we all know she's lying. She always has impeccable aim, so what's happening here? Miller said in an interview, I don't think she knows herself why she even did it, and it's great when you find those moments when Wednesday, who really goes into situations with great certainty, then she acts impulsively. However, Goff gave a strategic answer saying it gives the distraction she needs to take out the whole machine and save her brother. They also both said that they'll question why she did it in season 3. Francois ends up falling to her death after fighting as a Hyde, landing in the werewolf statue's arms in the Nevermore courtyard, and Isaac goes to kill Wednesday with his psychic powers, but his right hand, that is the thing, fights back. And I love this scene so much because the actor playing Isaac is really giving it all his fight to fight his own hand. Like, good on him. We're reminded that Thing can mess you up just like he did Haley Joel Osment in the first episode, and Thing ends up victorious and tears out Isaac's clockwork heart, and it's kind of metal. And also, we're always gonna be rooting for Thing. How did I get so emotional for our character that has no nose, no face, no body? It's just Thing. Capri then recruits Tyler to be part of a Hyde support system that would transcend the need for traditional masters, and tells him her father was also a Hyde and her ex-boyfriend. Girl, what the hell is going on? And the biggest reveal, my biggest reveal, Ophelia is alive in Frump's basement, and she's written Wednesday Must Die in blood. We end the season with the cover of the Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams, to which Tim Burton had to personally write a letter to Annie Lennox explaining the full context, and she approved of it for the show. Although the season has closed, there's still so much to theorize and expect in season 3. What happens to Tyler now? Is Principal Dort really dead? Should we really trust Grandma Frump? And what is Ophelia really going to do? When it comes to Ophelia, I'll be honest, it wasn't that surprising to me that she was alive. What was surprising was that Grandma Frump had her hidden away this entire time. This is the same grandma who's been practically begging Wednesday to stay with her, and yet she's secretly harboring the very daughter who clearly wants to kill Wednesday or say Wednesday has to die. Gruesome family drama is normal in the Addams Family world, like, don't get me wrong, sure, but this is still not ideal. The show's called Wednesday. There's even a fan theory going around that Rowan from season 1, remember the boy who tried to kill Wednesday, might actually be Ophelia's son. He did say his mother had visions in which Wednesday had to die.
My mother said it was my destiny to stop this girl if she ever came to Nevermore, because she will destroy the school and everyone in it.
Now, his mom could just be a gifted raven seer who happened to see the same things maybe Ophelia's seeing, but where's the fun in that? And it feels like there's something darker just lurking underneath all of this. If Hester is actively trying to lure Wednesday into staying while also secretly protecting her daughter who's plotting to kill her, or just knows that she needs to die, that sounds like a much bigger overarching threat. Even Goff teased in an interview that Grandma Frump isn't as simple as she seems, saying, for a show in tones of black and white, there's nothing black and white about any of these relationships. There really is more to learn in season 3. And don't forget, Ophelia's a raven. I think she owns the one-eyed raven that we've been seeing. So she's able to spy on everyone, which just so happens to be the final shot of the season. And this feels like a deliberate signal that she's still watching and maybe planning her next move. So whether Rowan is actually Ophelia's son, or Ophelia has the one-eyed raven and everyone's just an unfortunate pawn in the Frump family vision obsessed drama, it looks like season 3 is gearing up for a full-on family showdown again. And Ophelia's return changes everything. And I, for one, cannot wait to see who actually is going to be playing Ophelia, because please let it be Sarah Paulson. Oh my god, please let it be Sarah Paulson. Could you see her as Ophelia? That would be so much fun. Oh my god, please. As for Enid, Capri, and the whole Hyde situation, I think season 2 quietly just set up their endgame. The moment we saw Tyler's mom in full Hyde form fall to her death in the arms of the werewolf statue, that felt like a deliberate foreshadowing for Enid and Capri's arc in season 3. Here's why. I think Capri lied to Enid about what it means to be an alpha. I think alphas will be the ones that can actually kill a hybrid like Capri. Capri. Capri gives us so many breadcrumbs about her past. She dated a Hyde, her father was a Hyde, yet herself is a werewolf, meaning she's part Hyde, part wolf. There's already a volatile combination there. And when she tells Tyler she's part of a group who can help him, his own pack, it feels like a pointed connection to combat Enid and the other werewolves. Remember, Tyler told us way back in part 1 that Willow Hill was like originally built for a schizophrenic werewolf who during a full moon in 1992 went on a killing spree. And Fester even mentioned knowing a werewolf in Willow Hill who played the piano only to transform mid-concert and slaughter the entire orchestra. That schizophrenia could easily just come from being both a Hyde and a werewolf, two monsters trapped in one body, which would make Capri incredibly dangerous. If that's true, it almost feels like the story is telling us that the Hyde werewolf hybrid needs to be taken down, and who better to do that than an alpha werewolf? Which brings us to Enid. It makes total sense that Capri has been keeping such a close eye on her this entire season. Maybe Capri saw the signs of Enid's alpha potential long before anyone else did. In season 3, we'll finally see them face off, not just with each other, but likely with other Hydes too, I presume. This would put Enid in her most powerful, most terrifying form yet, finally just stepping fully into her alpha role, not just to protect her friends, but to take down one of the deadliest threats that we've seen in the show. Give it to me. And lastly, is Dort really dead? I think Dort is actually dead, and it looks like they already kind of casted a new principal, it seems, for season 3, or they're working on it. All I gotta say is I'm excited to see who the third principal will be. Nevermore's never really gone, so never is a real principal. And that's it for our breakdown of Wednesday season 2 part 2. The renewal for season 3 came before the debut of season 2. In an interview, they said they wanted to continue digging deeper into the characters while expanding the world of Nevermore and Wednesday, and we'll be seeing more Addams Family members and learning more family secrets in season 3. Comment down below your thoughts, and a huge thanks for Noah Chen for helping me write this bad boy. Follow me at Lulu_Clemons. And did you know that we have a channel that's coming out? And well, it's already dropped. It's The Witching Hour. The Witching Hour is our horror channel where we get to talk about everything scary with me, Jessica Clemons, Gina Peludo, Eric Voss, and some other secret guest. And Wednesday, if you're watching this, you'll love The Witching Hour. What are you talking about? Go subscribe before it's too late. And you can also subscribe to the other channels in the new Rockstars network. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.